It's Monday night, and you know what that means. The Jersey First television network probably brings to you the latest edition of Real Talk. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, I am the generational talent in Garden State media and certainly the leader in trustworthy journalism every single week for all of you folks. That's right. It's me, Fernando Uribe. Happy Monday to all of you. Hope you had a great weekend, folks. By the way, shout out to Indiana University quarterback Fernando Mendoza on winning the Heisman Trophy, the first Cuban American to do so. And by the way, how can you not root for someone named Fernando? I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm biased here, ladies and gentlemen, but shout out to Fernando Mendoza, Heisman Trophy winner at the University of Indiana, of course, fellow Cuban American. Happy to see that over the weekend. And again, folks, I want to thank you all for tuning in from wherever and however you may be doing so right now via Facebook Live, on StreamYard, also on all of our social media platforms. And speaking of which, folks, if you have not done so already, do us a favor. Like us on Facebook, of course. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and X. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. Of course, click the bell, and you'll be automatically notified of all the great content brought to you by Jersey First TV. And of course, whether you get your podcast on Spotify or SoundCloud, download Jersey First and take it with you. Again, even during these very bitter, cold days, folks, maybe you're walking your dog, doing grocery shopping, maybe going for an early morning run or a late afternoon run, whatever it is, maybe some last minute Christmas shopping, whatever it is you're doing, folks, I promise you, I'm pretty sure you're on your smartphone or you have a tablet nearby. Do us all a favor. Show some support for Jersey First. And trust me, you'll never be disappointed with our excellent programming. Again, I can't say enough, folks. Yours truly here leading the way for Jersey First TV, of course, educating and advocating for the residents here in the great state of New Jersey. Folks, again, brand new episodes of Real Talk with Fernando Uribe air live every Monday night. Check your local listings, of course, on social media. For start times, and folks, a special programming note, next Monday night, December the 22nd, will be the last episode of 2025. Yours truly has earned himself a tremendous vacation here. So I want to take it easy during Christmas and the new year, obviously, as we'll be back on January 5th. With brand new episodes, live and in living color, as they say. But you know what? Next Monday night, with the last episode of 2025, great traffic to brag about, and we'll talk about more about that later next week. Folks, who want to stick around for final thoughts? I have a lot to say because, well, the second consecutive week, it seems like left-wing academic Maribel Hoven, yes, I know, Miss Latina Beauty in 2012, obviously was now transitioning into becoming an academic. Yes, folks, yet another awful take on an op-ed that she submitted to NJ.com. And I'll tell you why her hysteria, once again, is completely misplaced. And I'll cover that during Final Thoughts. You definitely don't want to miss out on that. And speaking about hysteria and usually misplaced opinions, folks, yes, we can always rely on Uncle David Cruz, who's home unemployed, certainly by his own doing, of course. And we'll talk about his latest episode on his little, I don't know, Mickey Mouse podcast there that he does in his house, and why, quite frankly, he continues to be as dishonest as ever. Folks, you definitely want to stick around for that during Final Thoughts. I have a lot to say about both Maribel Hoven and David Cruz. Now, as always, ladies and gentlemen, during a special comment, I do want to wish everybody a happy Bill of Rights Day. Yes, the Bill of Rights celebrates its birthday today. And, well, many on the left are, hyperbolic and hysterical about the erosion of the Bill of Rights. Folks, the Bill of Rights isn't going anywhere. We're still enjoying every single aspect of the Bill of Rights, despite what the American left will tell you. I'll tell you why they're wrong, as usual, during a special comment later on in the program. Folks, again, like, comment, and share tonight's episode. It goes a long way in helping the show grow and certainly helping get the show out to more people every single week here via Jersey First TV. Folks, we're always talking about politics, about activism, about journalism. Let's talk about business and the business climate in New Jersey. And certainly, ladies and gentlemen, Election Day has come and gone, and there's concern for many in New Jersey about the business climate moving forward, what it means with taxes, what it means with spending in Trenton, and how it's going to affect our businesses moving forward in 2026 with the inauguration of a new governor, obviously with Rebecca Mikey Sherrill. And who better to talk about that than the president and CEO of the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. Folks, she's a big fan of the show and someone who I highly admire and respect considerably. Folks, she's my good friend, Michele Siekerka, joins us live right now here on Real Talk. Michele, welcome back. How are you?
It's a pleasure, Fernando. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you. Merry Christmas. Happy Festivus. Happy Hanukkah. All that good stuff, right? Well, listen, again, as I just mentioned during my opening statement right now, certainly Election Day has come and gone. For someone like myself, business owner, homeowner, I'm concerned about obviously what's going on with a new governor, but also more as a business owner. Michele, I'm concerned about what's going to be happening in the new year. But even before that, for our audience that maybe is not familiar with the NJBIA, what was its genesis, and what does the NJBIA do on a daily basis to help business owners throughout the state of New Jersey?
Well, thanks for asking. What I love to say is when we get up and put our boots on the ground each and every day, we advocate tirelessly for an affordable and regionally competitive business climate here in the state of New Jersey. Now, stop and think about that. Affordable and regionally competitive. We know how challenging that is in a high-cost state like New Jersey. So at the same time, we provide products and services to help New Jersey businesses keep their cost of business down. So that's our marching orders each and every day. We want to ensure that we're not just keeping static the jobs we have, but growing new jobs each and every day, and then making sure we have the pipeline and the educated workforce to fill those jobs into the future.
Folks, again, if you haven't done so already, please check out www.njbia.org for all the great content, whether it's business resources, advocacy, all the upcoming events and networking opportunities, as well as when the NJBIA is in the news and media. All that you can check out at their website. Once again, njbia.org. Michele, certainly for our audience that isn't aware, you are the president and CEO. Like any other nonprofit organization, I mean, you have to answer to somebody. So what does the hierarchy look like with the NJBIA when it comes to your position? Is it contractual? Is it at will? Help us understand when it comes to your organization or others, like let's say that advocate for what the NJBIA does. What's the pecking order, as they say?
Sure. So, I mean, I report to a board of trustees. That trustee board is made up of business leaders from across the state of New Jersey. Small, medium, and mid-size and large corporations sit around our table. We have built an incredibly amazing board of trustees, very representative of the business community and the fabric of the business across our great state of New Jersey. So I report to them. They provide their sage advice back to us. They strategize with us on future strategy for the economy and workforce of the state of New Jersey. And then, as I said, we get our boots marching and we get out there and we execute.
Speaking about executing, let's get into really about this election cycle and what it means for 2026. Michele, I talked to a lot of business owners, and a couple of weeks ago, I had Carlos Medina, the president and CEO of the Statewide Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. By the way, shout out to them. Great gala this past week at the Legacy Castle. My God, I think I had to maybe change pant sizes after that great open bar and cocktail hour. My God. But a great occasion to honor Hispanic-owned businesses and certainly Hispanics and Latinos alike. But, talking to him, Michele, I'll sort of share the same sentiments that I did with him, with you. As a business owner, and I speak for many out there, I mean, again, New Jersey continues to be one of the most unaffordable states in the country. We have the highest property taxes. Certainly affordability is an issue, especially for business owners, whether they're paying rent or trying to buy properties to continue their businesses. The gas tax is going up again. Now, again, in fairness, that started under Chris Christie many, many moons ago. But since then, obviously, we'll be seeing the tolls on the Turnpike and the Parkway go up, coincidentally, which will, again, make it even more difficult for business owners. Talk me off the ledge here because, I was under the impression that maybe as a conservative, we might have a Republican governor in the State House in January. That's not the case. We can sort of debate that later about what went wrong, but that's not what we're here for today. Talk me off the ledge here about whether or not I should be panicking among other business owners here in New Jersey with the inauguration of a new governor and really in just a few weeks.
So let me say, new governor, new opportunities. And we're cautiously optimistic in that we know that a governor like Mikey Sherrill is going to be better for the business community than a Governor Murphy was. I mean, we've just been tortured as a business community for the last 7.5 years. So we go into the new year, we look at a blank sheet of paper. I can tell you that we've engaged, we're serving on transition teams. Her team is actively listening. We briefed her team all through the election, as we did both candidates. Both candidates had access to us and our research, our data, our policy positions, and they took us up on it. So we do believe we will have a seat at the table. That's a start. That's the first thing. Let's get at that table. Let's get our opinions be heard. We have our blueprint for competitive New Jersey that is with the transition teams. That's 66 policy recommendations to make New Jersey more affordable and regionally competitive. So we're going to work hard to ensure that when we have that seat at the table, that we're not just sitting there inert, but that we're actually being heard, and that those policies are finding their way into future policies for the state of New Jersey.
Again, you say it so fluidly and smoothly. Again, Michele, you're really giving me a little bit more of breathing room here to not panic as much as others when it comes to what to expect in 2026. Now, during the spice election cycle, as you mentioned, you were talking to both candidates on the campaign trail about, again, concerns from business owners in the business community. We saw the results on November 4th. Not as close as many of us thought it would be. Certainly, I think polling continues to disappoint us for a variety of different reasons. But again, you are a nonprofit, but again, just as a voter and just looking again, as they say, from from the stands, right? Like looking at the ball field from the stands. Why do you think Cheryl's victory was so resounding just a few weeks ago?
Interesting. I do believe that it was a pushback on a Trump administration because there were some things that were occurring within that month leading up to the election that were not very favorable for New Jersey. Whether or not those policies work on a larger stage, right? But in where we are today is still somewhat of a blue state. I thought we were moving more purple. Historically, we are a purple state. I still believe at heart we are. I believe we're much more moderate than we look like on paper right now. And I will hold that to be true. But think about those few weeks leading up. I think that pushed people who were undecided in the wrong direction. So, for example, I think the nail in the coffin was the canceling of the tunnel project. Now, you can agree with the project or not, right? But that wasn't just a New York hit; that's a New Jersey hit. And so, that on top of some of the other activities that were going on during that time, I think the government was shut down for almost 2 months, and people were just feeling some pain. And the biggest part of all of this is there was this lack of predictability and certainty going forward. At the same time, these same people are experiencing the highest energy costs that they've had here in the state of New Jersey, forever. And Cheryl, her message did break through, whether you agree with, freeze rates on day one or not, and whether or not, at that moment there was a comprehensive policy behind it or not. That was her campaign promise. And I'm going to rest assured that we're going to see that on her day one. But I do know in transition, people are working around the policy behind it. So I'm going to come back again to here's where it's critically important that the business community is at the table while that comprehensive policy is being discussed. So I just think the headwinds wound up being much stronger than we could have seen, given some things that were going on leading up to the election.
No, you're absolutely right. Listen, the federal shutdown, I think, certainly didn't help at all for the Republican candidate. And, just a few days later, the federal shutdown ended, and Democrats, the necessary amount of Democrats voted to reopen the government, and they got nothing accomplished. So it was kind of interesting. That
it was a political move on their part too. You had two states with 2 governor elections and 2 Democrats who won.
Yeah. Yeah. And now again, in fairness, again, contrary to a year prior, obviously, there was a lot of giddiness this past November about 2 states that traditionally are blue states having another Democrat governor. So it wasn't out of the realm of possibility. It wasn't like we had like 5 straight Republican governors and all of a sudden a Democrat won. Like, it's been pretty consistent. Like, for the most part, Democrats and Republicans have kind of, flip-flopped a little bit in terms of like when they've been in the incumbency. But again, we'll see. First time in over, I think, going back maybe 60 more years since one party was able to win 3 consecutive elections. So we'll see. I know you did mention at the onset that Governor-elect Cheryl, hopefully for the business community, will be a lot better than Phil Murphy. And not to sort of relitigate that, but for our audience maybe isn't familiar with that, what we're, obviously as we're seeing him the door in just a few weeks, what type of grade do you want to give Phil Murphy on his way out?
Well, I mean, straight up from the business community, it's not a passing grade. Okay. And I say it that way only because I don't necessarily agree in education, like where a D falls anymore. Some people think a D is passing, you know?
No,
So,
no, no. I
yeah,
work in education. There's no in no multiverse, whether it's
no.
Iron Man or Doctor Doom or Thanos. There's no multiverse where a D's passing. But sometimes people might think that. But yeah, you're right.
But in fairness, I don't want to go all the way to F, only because there were some things that were accomplished. Okay, so we overspent for sure. Some of that money went to some places where we needed that money. We try to catch up with our pension, but we didn't do any reform. And we get an F on any reform effort. Let me say that. Okay. But we've built up some industry here. The film industry is really taking hold here. The AI hubs are coming online. So on the overall comprehensive, I don't want to say F, but like I said, D, and to me, D is not a passing grade.
Yeah, it's sort of like that. Well, you're not failing, but you're not exactly someone I want to recommend to the honor roll either. So I think we'll leave it at that.
Not the business honor roll for sure.
No, that's absolutely. Folks, if you just joined us live right now, it is 5:15 here on the East Coast. And my guest tonight is the distinguished president and CEO of the New Jersey Business and Industry Association here. Folks, the NJBIA, you can visit them at njbia.org. Once again, their president and CEO, Michele Siekerka, joins us live here on Real Talk. Folks, again, drop a comment or a question there in the comment section. Love the reshares I'm seeing right now. Folks, like, comment, and share. Again, it really helps the show grow, and it gets the show out to more people every week here on Jersey First TV. Michele, when we think about, and you just mentioned right now, AI, I mean, we're seeing a lot of concerns in the business community about the presence of AI. And again, and I really don't want to sort of make it sort of comical of it because, I'm someone that, for example, as a guy, I love comic book movies and stuff like that. And you can't even trust movie trailers anymore because of AI. You don't know what's real or not, or even social media. But when it comes to the business community and the workforce, I mean, I'm reading a lot of items in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and other, Forbes as well, where companies, I think, are realizing that AI might occupy a very dangerous precedent right now in our business community. And I might be dating myself with this, but John Connor and Sarah Connor warned us about AI a long time ago during the Terminator movies. We didn't listen, and now it's coming. The chickens are coming up to roost. But in all seriousness, how much of a concern is AI right now from people you talk to in the business community?
So I think there's a big mixed bag. There is a lot of opportunity, a lot of investment. At the same time, there's a lot of consternation and concern and anxiety because the pace is just so fast. Let me start by saying today, right now, as we sit here, we have to see AI as an enhancement to the workforce, not a replacement for it. Right. So this is the opportunity, though, to upskill our workforce on the use of AI to make their jobs more effective and efficient so that, their 8 hours a day become maybe tantamount to 16 hours a day doing it in an 8-hour period because they're taking administrative tasks off their plate that otherwise they couldn't do without AI. So AI can be an enhancement that can create great efficiencies for the current workforce. There's certain things you're never going to replace with AI, and there are some things that clearly can be replaced in the future with AI, but you're going to need people in order to continue to enable the AI, and that's where the future of the workforce is going to be. Another concern, though, I have with AI is as a communication tool. I'm very concerned that every time I get on a virtual meeting, I have to decline somebody's auto reader coming in or whatever their reader function is, because we have off the record discussions all the time, and now all of these meetings are being literally recorded. I'm an attorney by trade. Right. Sometimes, we have meetings where we don't take notes on purpose, and that's not for lack of transparency. It's for honest problem solving and transparency to sit and have a discussion and get different opinion without quote unquote being on the record. Right. And one more thing, I realized this morning too, watch the filter through with you see the AI companion coming out. And what I mean by that is the AI companion can only grab data from data that is out there. And if one side of a discussion and a debate has 90% of the data out there in the ecosphere, that's what's going to be grabbed and come to you. So you're going to get a filtered, AI summary of something through the lens of that 90% side of a debate. You need to use your own intuition and intelligence and go back and challenge that and say, is this really objective? Is this really neutral? Has this come through a be it political, left, right, or whatever type of filter you want to put on it, make sure that what you're getting is credible.
Absolutely. Well said there. When we talk about new industry moving into New Jersey, Michelle, as you alluded to, obviously Netflix, certainly I believe a new hub will be built somewhere in Bayonne, I think for another industry. And listen, again, for streaming services that continues to dominate our sort of viewing consumption on a yearly basis, you think about a state like New Jersey welcoming Netflix as well as maybe either Paramount Plus or others. Where do you see that in the next 5 years? Whether or not, again, maybe this serves as a sample size to see how they're doing, and whether or not other streaming service companies will look at New Jersey as a popular destination. Maybe not taxation wise, but certainly for real estate and the space that's available. Where do you see that in the next 5 years?
Yeah, well, I mean, we hope that it's going to come in successfully. We hope it's going to create job opportunities. I think the one thing we have to keep in mind is, while there is a base workforce attached to these entities, a lot of the workforce, when they come in and do the filming and the shows, et cetera, is contract work. And so an interesting irony here is, while we're lifting up this industry that is so dependent on contract workers, we have our New Jersey Department of Labor moving to rewrite the definitions and the rule of who's an independent contractor versus a worker, and an independent contractor on a 1099 versus a W-2 worker, to the detriment of the independent contractor, and frankly, knocking any type of independent contractor work out in the state of New Jersey. That's how overreaching this rule change is. So, and we're trying to sound the alarm on them. My God, you're lifting up this industry over here. And at the exact same time, you're going through DOL rules, changing them. That's going to hurt that industry relative to how they survive, which is on independent contractors.
Michelle, I know that you, along with others, right, at the NJBIA, are part of the governor-elect's transition team. Is that correct?
We are. We have three of our teams serving on transition teams. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Seems like a lot of chefs in the kitchen there. Is there a risk of a message being lost? It's just, I mean, again, and I'm happy you guys are on there, but when I looked at some press releases from the New Jersey Globe or other news sites about the transition team, my God, it looked like the casting call for the next Marvel movie. It was like 90 people? I'm like, my goodness. I mean, do we need that many people? But in fairness, we do want that versatility and diversity when it comes to ideas and policies, don't we?
So we have 10 policy action task forces, they're called. I think there's 9 or 10 of them, right? Jesus. And each of those have about 10 people on them. And think vertically, they're given a particular charge in a particular policy area, right? And they're going to go out and they're going to capture information, and then they're going to write some white papers, right? Then you have this other group called the Interdisciplinary Advisory Task Force. And what that is going to be is, I believe that's going to be the stakeholder group, where the ideas that feed into the 10 action teams are going to come from. So it was a way of going out there again into our ecosphere of New Jersey and say, all right, here's all the people in XYZ space over here. Let's try and get them together around a table. Let's ask them 5 questions that they can answer in real time and get that diversity, thought, opinion around the table, and feed that back to these other groups who are then going to write some recommendations and prioritize those recommendations. And that'll be, it'll become somewhat of the blueprint for the governor.
Again, folks, if you're just joining us live right now, it is 5:20 here on the East Coast. Again, like, comment, and share. It takes 5 seconds to show your support for Real Talk here. It helps the show grow and really help get the show out to more people out on your algorithm. My guest this week is distinguished president and CEO of the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. Michele Siekerka joins us live here on Real Talk. Michelle, when we think about businesses moving forward here with the new governor, obviously we know that affordability and taxation remains really, I think, at the top of many people's concerns list. Never mind property taxes for homeowners, but the affordability about building and whether or not there's enough space and what's being used for construction across the state. Obviously, whether it's discussions about affordable housing, but more so about business space for the business community. What are you hearing from business owners that you talk to that reach out to the NJBIA regularly about, well, it's not even so much about rents, but property that's available? Where can we develop? Are developers concerned about maybe New Jersey being too densely populated? Can the infrastructure sustain what we're trying to do with all this building? What are sort of the top concerns you're hearing right now from business owners?
I think in that post-COVID world that we live in, even 5 years later, a lot of folks have really skinnied down their footprint, their office footprint. And while we have, many that are in the office maybe 4 days a week, it's rare you find in the full 5 anymore. In some financial services, you are certainly in manufacturing and the jobs you have to be, retail, you are, right? But in the bigger world, we have, we see a lot more remote work, and I think you can see that when you're out driving around during the day. I'm on the road all day visiting my businesses, right? And I'm like, where is all this constant traffic coming from? It's because it's exactly what other people are doing too. So it's not just that proverbial, rush hour traffic that seems like it's rush hour all the time in the state of New Jersey. I want to touch base on that affordable housing issue because I do believe that is one of the pillars of the governor-elect. She ran on that strong, right? Energy, affordable housing, and government efficiency. We need real attention to what I'm going to call right now workforce housing. Affordable housing, the definition of who is eligible for affordable housing is a very, very low income threshold. And it sits kind of all the way over here, right? Market rate housing is incredibly expensive here in the state of New Jersey, and it sits all the way over here. What do we have in the middle? It's this vast void of housing that's available for the majority of the workforce here in the state of New Jersey called workforce housing. And it's folks that aren't making, a lot of money, but they're making enough money to get by, but they're going to be so significantly constrained on trying to fit into the market rate housing, and they're not eligible for the affordable. So I want to see us pay attention to the workforce housing for the future.
Michele, let me pick your brain about this because it certainly doesn't fit within the traditional business model. But as someone like myself who has worked in higher education and works in education now, you can almost make the case. I mean, again, New Jersey is not the only state guilty of this. You could say it's guilty around the country, but it would seem almost like higher education has become a business itself. Does the NJBIA work with higher education institutions to sort of, I guess, for lack of a better word, assess where spending cuts can be done? Because, again, I think about what higher ed used to be, and it's grown so much, and it's just, again, I would just argue it's become a business, and that's not what it was intended to be, but that's what it is now. What does the NJBIA stand in the sense of higher education, and whether or not they have been of any benefit to state colleges and universities in New Jersey?
So I'm going to call it post-secondary education, meaning grade 12 plus. And I'm going to do that because at BIA, we believe in the lifelong learning articulation, literally from cradle to grave, from pre-K all the way up to post-16 and beyond for workforce development, right? We have so many post-secondary opportunities to train individuals for jobs that pay good wages that you could live, work, and raise a family in the state of New Jersey, right? So there is that traditional college, higher ed that we think about, right? Our community colleges are part of that ecosystem, but they're much more on the workforce development side as well, because they have a lot of credit and non-credit opportunities in order to credential up, right? We believe that the best opportunities for our future workforce are to earn and learn because we're such a high cost state in New Jersey. We're the fourth most expensive for higher ed here in the state of New Jersey. Our colleges, our students come out with about $40,000 average, debt. Those aren't great. Those aren't great stats. And I think we know that next generation of the future workers are looking very critically about what they're going to do to make their way into their careers of the future. They don't want to take on the debt like their parents or even their older siblings did. Where do we sit? We sit at the table around their appropriations. We work with them to get appropriations for what they need in order to meet the needs of the workforce. We have a partnership with the New Jersey Council of Community Colleges on a program called NJ Career Pathways, where we have been writing pathways, again, in this articulation way that I said before, for in-demand jobs, like in healthcare, logistics and distribution, technology, right? These areas that are growing here where we need a future pipeline, but this is more about stacking up credentials, being a lifelong learner, and earning and learning as we go along. And the more we can build out that model, I think the more affordable our post-secondary education will become overall.
When it comes to the new administration coming up in January, Michele, and obviously I know you'll be working with legislators and talking to them regularly, hopefully having, perhaps the ear of the governor, the new governor, to some extent. That's always a good thing. I think any nonprofit that, like yours, that has considerable influence wants that sort of, connection capability with a new governor. Where do you see some of the biggest challenges coming up within the new legislature where, again, Democrats control both chambers by considerable margins. They have a big majority in the state Senate. And subsequently, riding her coattails in November, Democrats picked up, I believe, 7 new seats in the assembly. So, it's not like Republicans weren't already at a huge disadvantage. Now it's enormous disadvantage now in the state assembly. Where do you see challenges perhaps with the NJBIA working with the legislature where, at the end of the day, if Democrats don't just want to ram things through, they can. And there's really nothing to stop them. Again, the governor's a Democrat. The Senate president and the speaker are both Democrats. They're both very vocal in their chambers and their caucuses. Where do you see any challenges, if any, about a new legislature and a new governor in 2026?
Well, let's start and let's make sure we survive lame duck.
Yeah,
because for the next 4 weeks until January 20th, we have lame duck, which is basically a legislature who, many of which will not be coming back, and the opportunity before this legislative session closes and a new one opens to do things that they potentially don't have to own in the future. Right now, many of them will be, on the ballot 2 years from now. We'll have to remind them when they were on some of these not great business friendly policies. We got a few of them floating around that right now they want to expand paid family leave down to like 5 employees. We're going to knock our small businesses out. Like makes us an outlier status once again. We got this climate super fund that we're staring at. There's some things going on in lame duck we got to get through first. Okay. Now, keep in mind the new legislative session. That is correct. We have a super majority in the assembly because of those new seats. But keep in mind, not all Democrats are created equal, just like not all Republicans are created equal. And we see right now in our Democratic Party the rise of a progressive side of the party, which is more left-leaning than those moderate Democrats that we know and who work with us each and every day. And so I think we're going to see a little bit of fisticuffs within the party itself. Look, we had a Democratic legislature throughout the entirety of Murphy's administration. They didn't get along on a lot of issues. All right. Things had to be negotiated. So it's not a foregone conclusion that just because everyone's on the same side of the aisle, that everything goes the way they want it to go.
Fair enough. Michele, let me ask you this. Taking off your business cap off for a moment and taking off your attorney cap for a moment, let's just talk to Michele, the voter. Obviously, I think when you watch this show, I think you know where I lean. I'm not asking you for you to tell me where you lean, but whether it was talking to David Wildstein the week after the election or talking to others like Carlos Medina in the business community, I just venture to say that, I thought after 8 years of just a lot of bad policies from Phil Murphy, the state becoming more expensive to live in, shuffling money for programs to coddle illegals, in my opinion, and other things that I did not agree with. I just thought for some reason, I'm like, man, maybe this is the season where maybe a Republican can squeak through. And again, polling continues to disappoint us because it's not an exact science at all. I just kind of get this sense. I don't think I'm ever going to see a Republican governor again in my adult life. I just think that Democrats have registration advantages that they continue to build on. And it just seems like the vote blue, no matter who crowd, are just going to keep voting the way they do. And then, when I talk to some of my liberal progressive friends and they'll bitch and moan, oh, I don't know, I'm going to have to move to Florida or the Carolinas or something. And, New Jersey's too expensive. I'll just sit there and be like, really? I'll have like that face from The Office, like those characters that would just look at the camera and be like, oh, wow, New Jersey's expensive to live in. Oh, wow. Gee, I wonder. And it just boggles my mind where, again, New Jersey continues to become more and more unaffordable by the day. And it's the same people that keep voting in the same bad policies. Now, again, to your point, you're telling me that Cheryl is going to be more of a moderate than Murphy. I mean, my God, it's like, Jesus, do I want diarrhea or do I want like appendicitis? I don't know. But it almost seems like, I just don't see a Republican being governor anytime soon where, again, it just seems like policies make sense when it comes to taxation and spending. And it still didn't resonate to independent voters. And as you said, I get it. There were certain things working against Republicans this cycle, whether it was the federal shutdown, whether it was just this climate of like not liking President Trump, where last November, I mean, he came within 5 points of winning New Jersey in the Electoral College. A year later, very different opinion about Donald Trump. But I just don't see another Republican governor in my adult life.
I think some of what happened coming into the Trump administration, businesses, I mean, you just had to watch the stock market, right? Businesses thought, okay, here we go. We're going to reverse some of these affordability issues. And, the one big beautiful bill, I know this is such a controversial bill, but I will tell you, for manufacturers, that is like rocket fuel. I mean, the tax reforms in the one big beautiful bill for a manufacturing company are incredible. The goal there was to reshore manufacturing. The challenge is going to be, can we reshore it here in New Jersey with the business climate we have, right? We need expedited permitting, but guess what? Mikey Sherrill ran on government efficiency and expedited permitting. Could we see it happen? She's taken some pages out of the playbook. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed on that, right? But let me say this, tariffs, the big unknown, and what caused a lot of consternation over this past year because of the changing policy each day is tariffs. And that played out in our 67th annual Business Outlook survey that just came hot off the presses a couple weeks ago. One of the things that the business community talked about was the lack of predictability and uncertainty about tariff policy dramatically impacted them. And as a result of that, many thought they're not going to be able to absorb the price increases that they saw, number one. Number two, they had to change their sourcing, which means it backed up their supply chain. Also could have meant they might have had to go, quality over quantity, who knows? And all those things have a reverberating effect on a business's bottom line. And going into 2026, our business community in New Jersey is still a little, tepid. The Outlook survey is tepid. I think we're going to see static. What we want to see is growth, right? So we need some opportunities to unleash some economic growth here in the state of New Jersey. Maybe a few of these things like government efficiency and permit coordination and expediting the permit process and getting some projects on and addressing comprehensively our energy policy. Maybe these things are going to turn out more to our favor than we think. And frankly, I'm putting my head on the pillow at night, and that's what I'm praying for.
Fair enough. Michele, if you could be in the room come February or in the weeks leading up to February, when the new governor will have to present a budget to the legislature, if you could be in that room, what would you tell Governor Sherrill then? What should we be cutting in New Jersey?
Well, let's start with no new spending. Okay, no new spending. We need to start with a zero-based budget. Look, this budget has grown almost 70% over this last 7.5 years. There's stuff in there that made its way into the budget when we had excess money in the state because of our borrowings, because of our federal money that was here post-COVID. We need to go back, look specifically at those things and say, hey, those were meant to be one-time operating fixes. We can't continue to fund that, right? If we start from a zero base and you task every one of your cabinet members to go in with a fine-tooth comb and come out and say, build me a budget for what you need. Don't start from where you were last year. Here's the strategy, right? How do you do budgeting? You take your strategic plan and then you take your resources to build your strategic plan. Right. And when you come up short, you balance out some of those things. So, start from zero base, go with a fine tooth comb, no new spending, find the one-time spends that should be eviscerated at this point and get out of there, and no more pork. Hey, legislature, don't add another $1 billion at the end on these Christmas tree gifts you're taking home to your district. We can't afford it.
It always seems like June 28th, June 29th. And again, for everyone at home that's not familiar with the state constitution, the state budget has to be ratified by both chambers and signed by the governor no later than 11:59 p.m. on June 30th. Otherwise, we'll have a state shutdown at 12:01 a.m. on July the 1st. We've lived through a couple of them, obviously, 2017, briefly with Chris Christie, and in 2006 with Johnny Dollars there, John Corzine, during his one and only administration. Obviously, in the last few years, though, Michele, it seems like Governor Murphy and the legislature have really cut it close in recent years to make sure that doesn't happen. But subsequently last year, we saw that firsthand. Listen, I haven't seen that much pork since Christmas Eve at a Cuban household. All right. For, eating pernil, during Christmas. My God. Jesus. The amount of pork there, it's like, wait a second. Is Porky Pig just reproducing here? What's going on here?
And that's what we can't have that. We just can't have that going forward. We need some fiscal responsibility. We need some fiscal discipline. We big time need some reform. And look, this is the worst thing. You come in as a governor on January 20th, you're presenting a budget within 6 weeks. And then, all that negotiating, the first big thing you're negotiating with the new legislature, right, is the fiscal health of your state. That's a lot to walk into. And oftentimes, that can be the hardest thing to start with. You always want to start with where's the low hanging fruit and then get to the big stuff. But, let me say this, in this coming budget, we've got $6 billion of surplus. That's going to be pretty well gobbled up, I believe, to get this budget for this fiscal year on track in order to get Governor Sherrill moving forward. Our challenge is going to be 2027. Because there's no fluff in the closet in 27. And the fiscal cliff is here. So that $6 billion is going to create a little bit of a cushion for this year where there's not going to be a lot of pain. We'll have to start feeling some pain, but I have to protect no more pain for the business community. Okay. We've taken our lumps. No more corporate transit fees, no more corporate business taxes. You want to give property tax relief. We need property tax reform. Property tax relief never includes business who pays almost 50% of the property taxes across the state of New Jersey. Do you ever see the Anchor program have a set aside for small business? No. So if we're going to do those things, let's make sure that business gets its fair share of the pie, not that business has to bake the new pie and bring it out for everybody else to eat.
It's interesting you bring up Anchor. One of the funny lines during the campaign trail, I remember during the first debate between Chitterelli and Sherrill, was Jack just basically saying, yeah, well, this is what Anchor is. It's taking money out of your left pocket and putting it into your right pocket. And I'm just like, wow, like that was really simplistic, but it worked. And not obviously didn't work enough. But I think it makes you wonder about a lot of these programs. And I'll give you a funny example. I'm not sure if you went to the League of Municipalities last month. I enjoy going every year for different reasons, catching up with people, going to the open bars, going to these parties where I'm despised at, like I like being that likable villain, Michele, you know what I'm saying? So, but interesting. I ran into Speaker Coughlin at the Latinas on the Move mixer at the Tropicana Casino Hotel. And I was like, oh, Mr. Speaker, hi. And it's interesting because, you run into some elected officials. They may not know who you are. I mean, everyone knows who you are, Michele. But for me, it was one of those things where like, I'm not sure, maybe I have to introduce myself. And so as I saw, Mr. Speaker, hi, he didn't even let me finish he goes, Fernando, I know who you are. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. Like that was I didn't know how to take that, but I was like, Mr. Speaker, listen, come on, in 2026, can we do something about property taxes finally? And I can't believe, he wasn't drinking, so I know he wasn't impaired, but he was just like, oh, what county to live in? I'm like, I'm in Hudson. He's like, oh, what town? Oh, Union City. And he was like, oh, yeah, Brian Stack does a good job. I'm like, no, he does do a good job, but that's not the point. How about just at a state level, just cutting him down? You know what his answer was? His answer was like, well, didn't you get an Anchor check? I was like, I wanted to scream across the room, Michele. And I'm like, wait a minute, is this guy this tone deaf? Or are people in Trenton just thinking, oh, yeah, these programs are great? No, they're not. If you're paying $10,000 in taxes, getting a $400 check doesn't really do much, Michele.
And that's why we need reform. It's called a rebate for a reason. A rebate is you pay now and we'll give it back to you later. And the problem is when there's no money later, we can't get it back. And that's what's going to happen in the years to come, sadly. Sorry, senior freeze. There's a whole mechanism around, what triggers that ability to make that payment to homeowners. It's to seniors. And if there's no money there, we can't pay it back. So they're noble ideas. We're thrilled that they want to talk about bringing down the cost of property tax, but you can't do it in a rebate. Homestead rebate for 100 years. That was the same thing. It's a rebate program. And when there wasn't money for it, we said, sorry. And when there is money, when you get it the month before you have to go to vote. And it's like, oh, government gave me a gift. Now let me go vote.
Yeah, it's just the timing's impeccable. Folks, again, if you haven't checked it out, check out NJBIA.org. Obviously, a lot of great resources there in the menu, whether it's business resources, advocacy, events, and networking. And Michele, some of the things that really caught my eye coming up in 2026 for the New Jersey Business and Industry Association here, coming up on January 13th, a virtual meeting. If you could tell us more about the future of AI, how to compete and win, what's that virtual seminar about?
Yeah. So again, we're always looking to bring resources. And so our members share their expertise and we have subject matter experts in this space. And so they'll do a presentation on a couple of, items for your toolkit. and then they'll open it up to have some roundtable discussion and see how they can help bring businesses along. Again, small businesses don't have the AI specialist, the tech specialist in the back room. They don't have the HR specialist in the back room. They don't have the lawyer in the back room. So we try to supplement that with the resources that we bring out. And I do want to bring to light is on January 30th, if you're a policy wonk like me, you want to come out to our annual public policy forum. That's January 30th. It's on our website. We're going to have the legislative leaders panel. We're going to have an executive thought leadership panel where we're going to have executives from our New Jersey companies talk about, from their industry perspective, what are the challenges and opportunities facing them in 2026 that will drive policy for a new administration. And the governor-elect is invited, and we're waiting for her confirmation.
I know you mentioned that is an in-person public policy forum on January 30th. In between there, sandwiched in, is the on January 26th, another virtual meeting, Understanding the Road Ahead 2026 Policy Outlook. A little bit for our audience, just to understand what that meeting's about.
Again, and so we do webinars very often, and those webinars are meant to be, quick in and out toolkits. And then we have policy committee meetings where we go deep and we bring in policy experts to talk about, how do we move good policy in order to have a real impact on you as a job creator in the state of New Jersey. And so anytime you see any of our policy events or committees, and those policy committees themselves are just for our members, but our webinars and our events are for all of the business community to come and join.
Also, folks, if you've not checked out the website, certainly at the NJBIA.org, certainly you can see in the newsroom what's going on. Obviously, you mentioned during Lame Duck the concern about paid family leave, in addition to other things that are trending. What can we look forward to, aside from these events in January, though, Michele, with the NJBIA, but what can we look forward to in February, the spring and summer of 2026 of what the NJBIA wants to do?
Sure. So again, new administration, new opportunity. So we're going to bring back our Meet the Decision Makers series. This is when we bring in cabinet level officials to come and speak about their priorities for our business community. We take that one step further with a special program we have called Business Roundtable, where we invite into more closed door meetings for more transparent discussion with policy leaders, across the state. You can keep an eye out for our Workforce Summit. This is going to be our third Workforce Summit since I'm here 11 years. We spent a lot of time on workforce, and in our affiliate research foundation, Focus New Jersey, we do all of our workforce development research as well as economic trending data and analysis. But we're excited about this Workforce Summit because this will be the third time we're bringing our task force stakeholder group together for a new round of recommendations on how do we ensure the pipeline for talent for the future in the state of New Jersey. The last two times we did this, it resulted in a beautiful white paper called Education Equation, which put out recommendations that we've been executing on for the last few years on how to make higher education, as we discussed earlier, more accessible and more affordable for our next generation worker. We don't want them out migrating, Fernando. We want them to stay here. We spend a lot on them, K-12. They're our future workforce. We want them to stay here.
Absolutely. Speaking about staying here, and I sort of want to pick your brain about this because, again, there is concern, as we talked about earlier during the lame duck, about certain things being passed legislatively. Again, we talked about the potential for a hike in the sales tax, where during the campaign trail, that seemed to be a taboo issue, seems to be very real now. For our audience at home, tell us, quite frankly, what's the argument for and against raising the sales tax right now during lame duck?
Yeah. So very, very fair, objectively, if you want to look at this. So we were, if you recall, we were at 7%. And then Governor Christie during his administration brought it down to that, I believe 667. It's that little odd number. But every penny in that does matter, right? So some people think, no one really even recalls that we ever brought it down from 7%. So let's kind of just do it. Oh, they're not going to feel it because it's only that fraction of, of some basis points, et cetera, up. So what's that really going to feel for people? The other side of the equation, though, is, the sales tax is a robust tool in the state of New Jersey in order to fund many, many things that we do across the state of New Jersey. Which is different than many of our other taxes that are dedicated to specific sources, right? And so sales tax, that creates a lot more money to move around a little bit more freely. One thing that people talk about is, well, we're not going to increase it, but we're going to spread it. So what does that mean? Well, there are certain things we don't tax in this state. Ha ha, if you can believe it, there are some things we don't tax in this state, right? Professional services, for example. Now, people might not even realize, oh, you go to your accountant, you go to your lawyer, you don't pay sales tax on that. Some people say, you know what, we should tax that like any other quote unquote commodity. Why is professional services lifted out of that? So you can have an honest debate on all these things, but I'm going to say this again. Every dollar matters to business, and especially today, 2025 going to 2026, no new taxes. We shouldn't have an appetite for it. We certainly should not consider it as part of our disciplinary actions going forward. When I said disciplined, I mean discipline away from it, okay? And we seriously need some reform in tax savings in this state, not continuing to jack up the numbers.
Absolutely. Michele, begs the question here. Obviously, you're doing a great job as the president and CEO. I know you have a board to answer to. Again, outstanding job that you've done in your role. What's the future hold for Michele Siekerka in the next 5 years? Whether it's maybe elected office, is it going into private practice, or are you really, really good right now when it comes to NJBIA, and do you wish to see it continue growing under your leadership?
Yeah, it's shocking. I've been here 11 years. I've never been anywhere 11 years, to which my very funny comedic husband says, I finally learned how to hold down a job. Let me say this, Fernando.
Yeah, my goodness. Oh, wow, my goodness. He is
oh, he's a comedian.
Yeah, wow. Oh my goodness. Right.
No, but if you look at my track record, I was like a 5 or 6 year person. Anytime I took a new position, it was by way of opportunity. Something new presented itself to me, and I said, hey, that's a great direction to go in, right? Look, when I put my boots on the ground each and every day, and it is winter, so literally I'm wearing my boots right now, but when I put my boots on the ground each and every day to go out and advocate tirelessly for an affordable and regionally competitive business climate for our New Jersey job creators, I am darn proud to do it. Right. I think we have a great business community here in the state of New Jersey. We have a lot to speak about that is so positive about how job creators care about their workforce, how they reinvest their profits right back into their companies to grow and into their workforce to upskill them and make sure they have the next best opportunity. I'm proud to stand for that business community each and every day. I'm not done doing it for a while.
Michele, before I let you go, just looking at my email bag here over the weekend, I think some people knew I was going to have you on. And a business community that has grown considerably in the 5 years since it was passed via referendum here in New Jersey. We know that cannabis sales and dispensary licenses have grown exponentially since 2020. We know that the Cannabis Regulatory Commission, I mean, I have my issues with them. Now, again, I don't have a dog in the fight because I don't smoke weed. I've never have, never will. Doesn't interest me. Even though some people might think, well, Fernando's pretty uptight, he should smoke weed, but that's another conversation. But having said that, what are you hearing about the growth of cannabis or, businesses in New Jersey? Not so much like CBD businesses or anything like that, but actual like recreational marijuana dispensaries. Do you see this industry really growing in the next few years? Or do you think that maybe it's peaked already with the amount of licenses that are being, disseminated by the CRC, and even whether it's municipalities or counties?
It's a great question. And you're right. Here we are, 5 years out. We actually talked about through Focus New Jersey and with some academic partners doing a study on what have we learned about this industry over the last 5 years. What were the goals in legalizing marijuana in the state of New Jersey? One was to decriminalize, right? But number two, in standing up the industry, was to give those who might not otherwise be able to get into the business game the opportunity. Right? I don't know that we've accomplished that second part of it. A lot of the licenses are held more by names that we will recognize as bigger players, be it regional or in other states, et cetera. I don't know that we've gotten where we want to be or need to be on the growth side, on the growing side, right? We're an agriculture state. And we've got all these rules around, who can grow, how can grow, why can grow, can you do it at home? You can't do it at home. How do you enable people, to maybe take that up as part of the future of agriculture? Whether you agree or not, we never took a position on, cannabis as cannabis. We were always about workplace safety. I will tell you, I have not heard bells ringing off the hook that cannabis has been a problem in the workplace. We think that, responsible workers understand, hey, I smoke on the weekend, and yeah, a trace of it might come up in my test if I'm tested, but I'm not high when I go to work on Monday morning, especially in safety sensitive positions. But I'll tell you one more thing on this. A lot of industries self-insure now. because the insurers, right, want to know that you're doing drug tests for safety sensitive positions. Our companies are having a tough time hiring people because they weren't passing the tests. So these companies started self-insuring and making sure that they have good management and good OSHA, safety regulations in place in their workplace to keep the workplace safe and ensure people aren't doing seriously scary things if they're either intoxicated or high.
Folks, bottom line, get off the weed if you can. Okay, that's my 2 cents.
I'm tired of the stench throughout the whole state of New Jersey.
I can't stand it. I mean, it's just, again, I sound like a boomer here, but I don't care. Like, I hate this. I hate the smell. And when I'm walking down commercial avenues where I live in Hudson County, it's almost like, really, I feel like I'm at the Port Authority. It's crazy. Another business I think that has really grown in recent years, Michele, when you talk about like you're concerned about certain things in the workforce, well, I mean, my God, sports gambling here in New Jersey, and how it's grown exponentially in recent years with these companies surfacing. I mean, you name it: DraftKings, Bets River. Again, I don't have enough fingers and toes to name all the websites, but the bottom line is this is an industry that has grown and has really produced in the billions of dollars. What are you seeing about this industry in New Jersey? And again, never mind what impact it has on the workforce. You may not be able to work on Monday because you're so depressed about what you lost on Sunday, especially during football season. I don't bet on my Cowboys because I just, I've learned to be disappointed. But for others that are looking at this as a really growing mechanism, what are you hearing from the business community about what sports gambling is doing in New Jersey?
Well, I mean, let's start with for the industry itself. I believe that our bricks and mortar casinos are surviving because of online betting, because those casinos, through their, whether it's them directly or their mothership, the holding company, whatever, right? It's almost like, I'll give you an example, right? New Jersey Business Magazine, award-winning New Jersey Business Magazine. We still print it. It goes out once a month to our membership and beyond, right? 25,000 of them. People go, a print magazine? Really? How do you survive? Because we have a digital part to it too. Right. And so when you're taking like brick and mortar or something hard like a magazine and you're marrying the digital side up to it, that's what's affording the bricks and mortar that people enjoy to continue to thrive. So it's good for the overall industry, and that's what's keeping their numbers up. And that's been healthy and beneficial to the industry. We could debate all day long on the impacts of gambling, just like we could debate cannabis, and we can debate, any type of intoxication and anything that's habit forming. I think at the end of the day, that all leads back to something that's very troubling: mental health. And, we got a lot of people suffering, Fernando, with mental health. And with mental health comes, vulnerabilities, and then people can be taken advantage of. And so I think we should have to make sure that we protect consumers in some of these things while not stifling them, right? Because you have freedom of choice in how you want to spend your time and where you want to spend your money. So.
And did you just mention about gambling and casinos? I mean, obviously, in just 5 years, less than 5 years, we'll be seeing the largest Hard Rock being built in North America. Just maybe a 45-minute drive out into Queens, next to Citi Field, with home of the New York Mets. And I mean, that when you think about the growth that'll do, not just to New York but to New Jersey as well. I mean, New Jersey residents will be going across the river. Obviously contributing dollars like that. So very interesting. And consequently, if you recall back in 2017, when it was on the ballot about having a casino up here by me in nearby Bergen County, that failed miserably. And, it seems like, well, whether it's in Pennsylvania at the Sands or Empire Casino in Yonkers or resorts in Queens, here in New Jersey, it seems like Atlantic City is still trying to keep a monopoly on that. Do you foresee that changing anytime soon? Or again, in 2017, it failed on the ballot, but do you see that maybe resuscitating itself in future years?
Yeah, I mean, I think people will start to look at, well, do we want to lose it to another state, or do we want to keep it within the state? And then what are the right incentives for the entirety of the industry so that it can survive both North and South? There were some proposals at the time, whether it was going to be the casino at the Meadowlands or the casino, on the water by Liberty, the golf club there. They were two really great plans. And what that would do is keep revenue in the state. So maybe people won't be so, hell bent to get on the boat and go across to a Hard Rock or otherwise. So, we don't want to make it harder for people if that's where they choose to get their entertainment. We want to enable it and try and keep that revenue here in the state.
Have you finished all your Christmas shopping, Michele?
No, I actually, finally made my final list last night going, oh, I better now get out in the next week and get those little boxes out and things like that. So I'm close, but not quite.
Well, get that just in case the sales tax goes up in the next couple of weeks. I mean, make sure you get that done. Michele, again, I really appreciate your time. Folks, it's 6 o'clock exactly here on the East Coast. And we're just about to wrap up here with the president and CEO of the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. Michele Siekerka joins us live here on Real Talk. Folks, again, like, comment, and share. Helps the show grow and really get out to more people. And again, a shout out to the great crew at NJBIA for featuring the episode today on the website, obviously in the news section of the homepage. So I appreciate that. Michele, you're always a wealth of information, and I really appreciate your time. I'll give you the last word here as we close out 2025 and we enter 2026 with the NJBIA, with you and your great leadership. I'll give you the last word here tonight.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, John. I wish everybody a healthy, happy holiday season and a prosperous 2026 team.
All right. Folks, again, Michele Siekerka, the president and CEO of the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. Again, you can check them out at njbia.org for more information about events, resources, that and much more. Check it out at www.njbia.org. Michele, happy Festivus, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. Be safe out there and keep speaking up for business owners. You're doing a great job, and we appreciate your really your support of my media brand here on Jersey First TV. Have a great one, Michele. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Fernando.
Have a good night. Folks, good stuff there. Michele Siekerka there, the president and CEO of the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. Here, our guest tonight here on the show. Folks, again, I can't say enough. Like, comment, and share. It takes 5 seconds. Trust me, I've done it. I've even timed it. You can show your support as we continue to be the leader in fearless, independent journalism here in the state of New Jersey. Folks, you can always rely on Real Talk via Jersey First TV. Folks, again, it's 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. Again, I cannot say enough. We appreciate you making this a part of your Monday night viewing. As you all know, it's time for final thoughts. Yes, folks, it wasn't bad enough last week. But as we all know, there's no shortage of bad actors here in New Jersey. Whether it's in academia, we all know, soy boy beta males like Joe Amaditis at Woke State University over there in Montclair, right? Or other sort of useless government employees out there that we all know, making 6 figures and not really doing much and, thinking they're overworked, but they're not. We all know the types, right? Like Maria Rodriguez-Gregg over at Montclair State University, right? Insufferable activists like Amy Torres with the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice, right? Propagandists who are trying to masquerade themselves as journalists and no one's buying it. We all know the types. Tom Moran, Alan Steinberg, John Van Vliet, Max Pizarro, Bob Hennelly, right? Jay Lassiter, right? David Cruz, more Uncle Dave later. Chucky, Charles Style or Matty Friedman, right? But there's never a shortage of left-wing propaganda in New Jersey. And again, take your pick, folks, whether it's in media, journalism, academia, activism, or advocacy, there really is no shortage there, folks. And again, what I like to do, and again, as you can see behind me there, it's a pretty updated collage of some of the bad actors here in New Jersey. And trust me, by the end of the year, I'll make sure to update it with some new ones. And again, I don't want to make it too cluttered because you won't be able to recognize the faces here on the collage. Obviously, a lot of very non-photogenic faces here, but nonetheless, there's a lot of bad actors, folks. But especially when we talk about in academia, it makes me wonder about hyperbolic narratives, hysteria, and the like. And of course, folks, having worked in higher education, working in education now, I know firsthand, folks, about dealing with hyperhysteric and hyperbolic academics, right? I know about that firsthand, dealing with so many left-wingers in higher education. But the latest participant in higher education, yes, and listen, she's as nice to look at back then in 2012 when she was Miss Belleza Latina as she is now, and that's Maribel Hoban, right? An academic who, for the second consecutive week, folks, and again, maybe NJ.com loves the hysteria and the left-wing virtue signaling and the victimhood that NJ.com has been so good at conveying all these years. Again, remember, folks, this is the news site that used to employ, Tommy Boy, Tom Moran, who thankfully is out of a job. from NJ.com. Right? But the latest piece by Maribel Hoban, again, underlines and reminds us all about the fact that Trump derangement syndrome is very real. Right? And let me just give you a perspective here, just looking at the article itself, and you can look at the cover there. Women-dominated fields are under fire by Trump, and New Jersey cannot stand silent. I'm going to read you a little bit here of this column from Maribel Hoban. Okay. And in fairness, folks, again, for transparency purposes, I have reached out to Maribel. I'm looking to secure a date with her on this show to come and discuss where we disagree, because there's a lot we disagree on. But that's important, especially as fellow academics, myself. I'd like to be able to talk to someone who is very left-wing, and it seems like being hyperbolic and, just being hysterical isn't going to solve anything. But let's continue on here. So our latest op-ed as a guest columnist with NJ Advanced Media starts as this. The recent Trump administration push to redefine what counts as, quote, professional degree is not just a policy tweak. It's a direct assault on professions that have long been the backbone of our communities. These are not niche jobs. They are careers overwhelmingly held by women: nursing, teaching, social work, speech pathology, dental hygiene, education, counseling, public health, early childhood development, fields that sustain our schools, our families, our hospitals, and our future. By targeting these careers, the federal government is sending a chilling message that work performed by women, again, folks, it never ceases to amaze me about a Latina being hysterical and hyperbolic. That goes without saying. But let's continue on. The work of care. Just get to the article here. My apologies here. God, folks, these pop-ups at NJ.com are just so annoying. It's just like, Jesus. Of teaching, of healing is less legitimate, less worthy, less professional. When we devalue these professions, we devalue the contributions of the women who choose them, often not for glamorous titles or massive paychecks, but because they want to serve, to improve lives, to build community. In New Jersey, we already confront real shortages. We struggle to find enough qualified teachers to staff our classrooms. Well, that's not true, Maribel. I mean, a lot of school districts are hiring teachers at very high salaries. I mean, that's just not true. Okay. We cannot recruit enough nurses to meet the demands of our hospitals. That's not true either, folks. Nursing programs in New Jersey, whether it's at Berry Community College, Hudson County Community College, Felician College or Felician University, or others, have very prosperous nursing programs. And many nurses are still graduating. So again, I just find this hyperbole just ridiculous. But we lack adequate speech therapists, social workers, and early childhood educators, essential professionals working in schools, clinics, and community programs. These are not back burner jobs. They're the infrastructure of our society. No one's saying that, Maribel, and neither is the Trump administration. Now, you read what you want to read, and you hear what you want to hear, like a lot of Latinas. But that's not the case. You're entitled to your own facts. Listen, you're entitled to your opinion here, but you're not entitled to your own facts. And that's where we're going wrong here with yet another dishonest op-ed. But the federal reclassification threatens to worsen the crisis. It jeopardizes student access to federal aid, restricts career pathways, and undermines the dignity of these fields. Without strong pushback, we risk discouraging the next generation of caregivers and educators, especially women, from pursuing careers they are passionate about and that our state desperately needs. New Jersey has to act, and Governor-elect Mikey Sherrill must lead. She has an historic opportunity to speak out, to protect, and to invest. Her administration can, again, and this is where Maribel thinks that her policy prescriptions make the most sense. A, expand state-funded tuition assistance and loan forgiveness programs for teachers, nurses, speech therapists, social workers, and other high-need professions. Well, again, Maribel, what they do at the federal government level is loan forgiveness. That has happened for certain public sector jobs. To expect New Jersey to do that as well, that's at the expense of taxpayers. Are we not taxed enough? Have you not seen the gas tax going up again? Right? Now, thankfully, yes, we're drilling domestically and a barrel of oil has gone down dramatically. But with the gas tax due to increase on January the 1st, we'll continue being the fourth highest gas tax in the country, behind California, New York, and Pennsylvania. Right? Strengthen partnership with the universities and community colleges to grow enrollment in these fields, especially in undeserved areas. That's already happening, Maribel. See, folks, again, what happens with NJ.com is, since a lot of it is behind a paywall, what they're banking on is that they're going to feed into the hysteria. They're going to feed into your emotional capital by these ridiculous titles. Okay, but that's just not true. Folks, that's already happening. I can tell you from speaking to college presidents like Chris Reber at Hudson County Community College, like Andres Acebo at New Jersey City University, and other college presidents that I've spoken to throughout New Jersey here on Real Talk, that's already happening. So I don't know exactly why el tiki-tiki for Maribel. No sé. It just, a Latina tiki-tiki, that's water, wet. Really? But here's another interesting one. Safeguard and boost diversity-driven recruitment initiatives to ensure our workforce reflects the people it serves. Again, Maribel, enough with the DEI bullshit. Okay, let's just get the best qualified people. This fixation on DEI, like many of you left-wing academics love to fixate on, isn't solving any problem. It really isn't. All right? Also, she's asking the governor to elect to use her public platform to condemn any federal policy that diminishes the value of women-dominated professions, affirming that these careers are not just necessary, they are noble and essential. The message must be unequivocal. Women's work matters. Maribel, it does. And no one's saying it doesn't. And that's not what the Trump administration is alluding to. But here are the facts. And again, it seems like for the second consecutive week, Maribel Hovin is struggling with facts once again. Okay? Now, professional degrees are typically advanced post-bachelorette programs that directly prepare students for specific licensed professions requiring extensive specializing training and often a doctorate level qualification. Classic examples include an MD in medicine, a JD in law, a DDS when it comes to dentistry, a PharmD in pharmacy, a DVM when it comes to veterinary medicine. These are often first professional degrees at the graduate level. Nursing degrees, by contrast, Maribel, are primarily undergraduate or graduate academic degrees focused on the science and practicing of nursing. There's a big difference there. Okay? Entry level, for example, associate degrees in nursing, an EDN, or a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. Again, these are academic degrees. They're not professional doctorates. For example, in advanced, a Master of Science in Nursing, an MSN, or a Doctor of Nursing Practice. These are graduate degrees, but the DNP is a practice-focused doctorate, which is distinct from a traditional professional degree like the MD. Now, you're probably wondering, Fernando, why this list? Because we have to understand what degrees require more training and more studies. Okay, let's continue on here with this op-ed. Okay. Now, again, what's interesting about left-wing academics like Maribel is, again, I thought there was no such thing as women's work or men's work because supposedly men and women's work are equal. We all know that's not true. Okay. All this narrative we've ever heard about, well, women aren't paid the same as men. Yes, it's true. But understand something, ladies. Men will take on professions and jobs that women are just choosing not to do. Nothing wrong with it. But men are choosing professions and occupations that women, quite frankly, are choosing not to do and are overlooking and are looking for occupations that are a little bit safer, not just monetarily, but also work conditions. That's just a fact. Okay? So as much as left-wing academics like Maribel Hovin want to, be obsessed with pay inequity and, DEI in the workforce, folks, it's bullshit. It just is. It's absolute bullshit. Okay? Now, what Maribel won't tell you is that her concerns or her outrage are misplaced. Because here in New Jersey, as we just talked about right now with Michele Siekerka from the New Jersey Business and Industry Association, is that AI is on the rise and AI is going to start costing jobs for not just men, but also for women. There should be a concern about that, Maribel, not so much about the fact that the Trump administration is somehow devaluing women's work. They're not. That's not the modus operandi here. And I get it that, again, folks, Trump derangement syndrome is a serious problem. It just is. And left-wing academics, they exemplify this better than other professions, right? Let's continue on here with this article. Well, the op-ed, excuse me. Okay. Here's another thing here. Beyond the shortages and economic implications, there's a safety dimension that cannot be ignored. Many of these careers are mandated reporters. They're often the first line of defense for children. Oh my God, Jesus, these pop-ups here on NJ.com. My God, Jesus. Folks, no wonder nobody wants to like subscribe to this bullshit here on NJ.com. Okay, I'm just these are often the first line of defense for children and vulnerable adults legally obligated to identify and report abuse, neglect, or unsafe situations. If New Jersey stays silent now, we risk allowing political decisions in Washington to devalue these fundamental careers. But if we act, if the Sherrill administration makes it a priority, we can protect vital professions and the women who dedicate their lives to them. Our state cannot afford anything less. Yes, again, folks, that sounds like a whole big word salad intended to evoke an emotion in you. But the facts are that Washington, D.C. has nothing to do with this. Maribel Hovin wants you to believe that the Trump administration is the root of all evil when it comes to the workplace, whether it's education or anything else. Folks, this is 2 consecutive weeks now that Maribel Hovin has produced an op-ed that, quite frankly, just doesn't pass the mustard. And again, Maribel, while I like looking at you, again, you're a hot little mommy with degrees. I get it. I appreciate that. Okay, good-looking people, got to look out for each other. I'm with you. Okay? And I applaud you. But for the second consecutive week, you get it wrong here. I don't take my word for it, folks. Just check out the comment section. Now, I get it that NJ.com has essentially become just a cesspool for enabling Trump derangement syndrome. So an op-ed like this should not surprise anybody. But you should see the pushback on the comment section, because that should tell you everything you need to know about why this op-ed for the second consecutive week continues to get it wrong. Speaking of getting it wrong, ya tu sabe, Uncle Dave, who lives on getting it wrong. Folks, and again, listen, I have to give him his due. It's nice to see that Uncle Dave, being unemployed has not deterred him from trying to be productive. Because as we all know, folks, during the month of December, when he was working at NJ Spotlight News, tú sabes que ese huevón, eso no hacía nada. Como en el verano, right? So, let's say, right after Memorial Day, June, July, August, right? And then I think right around, right after Thanksgiving, into December. So basically, almost 5 months, que este huevón no trabajaba, right? So now, mysteriously, Uncle Dave in his old age, right? At the age of 84, 85, right? Somehow thinks he's a spring chicken. And now he's got this boost of energy and wants to start working again now in December, right? Hosting some little Mickey Mouse show there on YouTube that doesn't get any views. I mean, not that I can see. But folks, again, I don't make it. Now, again, if you need a cure for insomnia, check out Uncle Dave and his shows. His Temu version of Reporters Roundtable and his Temu version of Chatbox, right? But this was interesting here, having one of the better virtue signalers in the state Senate this week on his show, State Senator Andrew Siekerka, about the future of public broadcasting and why it's a concern. Folks, before we play the clip, let me just say this. For someone like Uncle Dave to complain that public broadcasting is being defunded is a travesty. Uncle Dave, again, te lo digo sinceramente, it's because of propagandists like you. You have you to blame. You have others to blame for the decline in established media because people don't trust it. And the reason that people trust Fernando Uribe, the leader in independent media, the leader in trustworthy journalism, okay, the generational talent in Garden State media, is because I come on this show every week, folks. Every week since 2020. And I tell you the truth. Sometimes an uncomfortable truth that maybe isn't easy to listen to or hear, but I tell you the truth because you deserve it. The same can be said about Uncle Dave all these years working for NJPBS, NJ Spotlight News. Because if anyone peddled left-wing propaganda for establishment media, I mean, Uncle Dave had his competition, whether it's Tom Moran, whether it's Ron Zellniger, whether it's Max Pizarro. You name it, folks. There's no shortage of clowns. Okay? In New Jersey media. Okay? But his latest episode here with State Senator Zwicker, it almost, folks, you can see through the bullshit of State Senator Zwicker and Uncle Dave somehow trying to find out, well, why did this happen? Why did the federal government and even the state government believe in defunding? Because you don't serve a purpose anymore, Dave. Enough years of lying and carrying buckets of water for one political party the way you did so overtly. Sooner or later, the chickens come home to roost. But you somehow don't get that through your head. But let's watch this bullshit session here with Uncle Dave and State Senator Zwicker.
The hearing on the future of public broadcasting in New Jersey. So what did you hear and what stuck with you?
Well, a couple of things. So let's just step back for a second. But public broadcasting is under enormous economic pressure in the state and throughout the country. It comes from both federal pressure and cuts at the federal level. But honestly, there were cuts at the state level too that have put us in a situation now where if we don't take action, then New Jersey could lose its public broadcasting station.
Oh, boo-hoo. Oh, my God. Ay, Dios mío, el horror. That, New Jersey will lose its who cares? You did it to yourselves. Uncle Dave led the way by being as blatantly dishonest as he's been all these years. Okay? Whether it's like kissing the ass of every Democrat that ever came on his show and harassing Republicans when he interviewed them. Don't you think sooner or later people would learn or see through the bullshit of Uncle Dave? Again, folks, the chickens come home to roost. You can only peddle propaganda for so long until people get tired of it. And put it this way, never mind the federal government. Because Uncle Dave may want to blame Republicans in Washington. What does it say where Democrats have controlled the legislature for over 20 years? And even Democrats in New Jersey got tired of the bullshit of the establishment media. Starting with Uncle Dave. Tells you a lot, folks, about how, in what little regard they have for Uncle Dave and his acolytes and other propagandists in establishment media.
And that uniformly from everybody we heard is unacceptable. And so we wanted to, wasn't just about the value of public education, but what are the steps moving forward? Because Republicans, Democrats alike, advocates all say that we have got to take action.
And we're here because NJPBS is ending its, I guess it was a 15-year contract with the state to operate the public broadcasting system, which I guess is sort of mandated by statute that the state provide. And so now the state needs to pick a new operator by July 1.
It's not a lot of time, right? And this goes back to when former Governor Chris Christie decided that the state should no longer be operating on its own public broadcasting. So we moved to a public-private partnership. And what's happening now is the private part, WNET.
And by the way, folks, I mean, evoking the goat of journalism, Michael Aaron, is, in my opinion, reprehensible. Anyone who thinks that David Cruz is anywhere near the stratosphere of what Michael Aaron was, folks, that was journalism. That was responsible journalism. Okay? I had the pleasure of knowing Michael Aaron. I miss him to this day. And I had the privilege of being invited onto Reporters Roundtable, his show, multiple times, and I was grateful for the opportunity. And I was grateful for the opportunity to interview Michael Aaron when I did on my podcast over the years. Okay? But Dave, again, really? Again, you're doing a disservice to Michael Aaron's legacy when you're even trying to evoke him in the same argument here. Because that right there, during that time period with Michael Aaron, that was responsible journalism. That was responsible nightly news. Those are not things we ever think about when we think about David Cruz. That's just a fact.
He has decided this is not worth their economic value, the economic value. So it's beholden now on the state to figure out who the next private, it's a nonprofit that we need to figure out, will take over managing all of the unique content, but not just the existing content. We will then charge that entity with looking forward for, what is the future of public broadcasting in this media environment.
I listened to the hearing. A lot of recommendations on what to program, from high school sports to Senate budget hearings, but not much from the panelists who were invited guests um, to speak. Not much from them in terms of how we're going to pay for this, right?
Yeah, and look, I should give an enormous shout out to my colleague in the Senate, John Berticelli.
Yeah.
He and I have been the ones, and he really started this and making sure that we focused on it. He and I, that's going to be on us and our legislative colleagues to figure out a source of funding and a stable source of funding.
Well, this is the thing, Senator Zwicker and to Uncle Dave. Yes, for way too many years, taxpayers were flipping the bill for bullshit programming. Okay, New Jersey residents, the taxpayers, were putting the bill down for bullshit propaganda that came out of NJPBS and NJ Spotlight News, which Uncle Dave oversaw. So forgive me if I'm not looking to have my tax dollars being rated again to fund bullshit. I'm sorry. Like, it's hard for me to feel sorry for these apparatuses when they did it to themselves. Now, if you operated an honest and straightforward and transparent news cycle and news service, I might be willing to have that conversation about where my tax dollars go. But for the longest time, taxpayers, both at the federal level and at the state level, were funding left-wing apparatuses like PBS. Okay, there was nothing objective or middle of the road, okay, or bipartisan about PBS at the national level or at the state level. So forgive me if I'm not crying a river for the end of PBS and how we should fund it. Now, for someone like Zwicker, who's a tax and spend liberal, trust me, folks, when I tell you, he'll be happy to raise your taxes if it means funding bullshit apparatuses like NJPBS. And if that means trying to give Uncle Dave a job again, I mean, hey, would you really put it past them? Of course not. Propagandists love to, I guess, shake hands and lock arms with fellow propagandists. But let's continue.
We are, as the incoming Governor-elect Sherrill administration comes in, we've got a lot of economic challenges.
By the way, economic challenges started by people like you, Andrew, who's never met a tax hike he's never liked. Okay, so spare me again the fake outrage, like, well, New Jersey's in, certain economic despair. Yeah, because of tax and spend progressives like you, with your bullshit progressive policies that continue to make New Jersey unaffordable. Okay? Never mind the bullshit you stand up for when it comes to the alphabet mob and content in our public schools and LGBTQ curriculum. Don't even get me started on that with Andy. But the audacity of this fool to talk about affordability and, well, what we can afford here. You're part of the problem, Andrew. If anybody in your district had any good sense, they'd vote your sorry ass out. You're useless. But let's continue.
And I look at public broadcasting as part of New Jersey's infrastructure, as important to ensure that it's adequately funded as our roads and bridges.
And by the way, it's not. And guess what? The gas tax will go up on January the 1st, right? Because it's supposed to go into the Transportation Trust Fund, right? And guess what? When AAA does their ranking of roads across the country, New Jersey is still in the bottom third of roads. So please spare me your bullshit about, we have to look at important infrastructure. You don't give a shit about infrastructure, Andrew. You just care about your own bullshit policies. Let's be honest about it. But let's continue. And again, folks, this is the type of bullshit propaganda you can expect from Uncle Dave because he enables this stuff. He coddles it. No pushback, no challenging the state senator whatsoever. But what do you expect from Mickey Mouse journalists like Uncle Dave?
So we've just started that conversation among ourselves with our colleagues. We have, as you said, till June 30th, the end of our next budget cycle, to work in collaboration with the incoming administration and figure that out. It's not a lot of money. It's in the neighborhood of, let's say, 15, maybe $20 million.
That is a lot of money, Andrew. I know that to you, spending money in Trenton is like whatever. Again, doesn't matter. But for the rest of us that don't have a nice little cushy state senate job like you do, yeah, $10 to $15 million in a budget, that's a big deal, Andrew. I know that to you, math is like, you're as bad at it as Uncle Dave. Okay? But come on now. I mean, this is full-blown retard here that you can't understand how tone deaf and myopic you sound, politically speaking, when it comes to like spending in Trenton.
So we'll figure that out while we figure out the governance structure.
I'm sure you remember when the changeover occurred from NJN to what was NJTV then. it all just came down to these votes in the Senate, and then down to, I think, one vote in the Senate. And then the next day, you know, after July 1st, they had to start a whole new network. And while they were lucky to have the infrastructure of PBS, it was a really short runway to get things going. And they were so desperate that they hired me at that time. So,
well, that's true. I mean, they were very desperate to hire propagandists like you, Dave. I mean, let's be fair, man. I mean, you're about 3 degrees short of a retard when it comes to your views and really, quite frankly, how you conduct yourself. But again, you know, I mean, at least you're saying the quiet part out loud. I mean, you beat me to it, if anything.
but it took a while to get that thing going. And if it doesn't happen sooner, we're going to face that again. Yeah, you know, the other thing about this, I'm sure you remember when the changeover occurred from NJN to what was NJTV then. It all just came down to these votes in the Senate.
Well, folks, again, I think you get I think you get the picture here. The idea that there's some sort of outrage, whether it's by State Senator Zwicker or Uncle Dave, about the future of public broadcast, again, you did it to yourselves. You don't deserve a penny of taxpayer dollars. And I hope there's some pushback in Trenton. I really do. I really hope that there's some state senators that really put their foot down and say, no, I don't think taxpayer dollars should be going to fund this. You care so much about public broadcasting? Get some donors, okay? Get some private equity to fund this. But the idea that this should be at the expense of public taxpayers like it has for years, and in return, what have we gotten? Bullshit programming? For years, we had to endure Uncle Dave sitting there, Google Gaga, kissing the ass of, of Cory Booker, Spartacus, or other elected officials, or other left-wing academics or activists. Really? Is that what I want my tax dollars being paid for? No, thank you. Sorry about that. Dave, if you want to talk about the demise of public broadcasting, it's people like you that we have to blame. Look in the mirror, bro. Take some accountability. I know that's hard. Listen, accountability is a big word for you, in addition to other words that are big words for you. But it should start with another 4-letter word you struggle with, and that's called integrity. Have the integrity to at least say, you know what, maybe I should have done a better job and not sink public broadcast, because it's propagandists like you, Uncle Dave, that killed public broadcasting in New Jersey. I want to say it's all on Uncle Dave, but he's a big reason for it. And speaking of another reason, again, why his show's a joke, let's talk about, well, listen, of course, he wants to talk about the new election in Jersey City with a new mayor and new council members. And of course, instead of pushing back on 2 Democratic socialists, listen to the softball questions here given to these 2 idiots, Jake Efros and Joel Brooks in Jersey City.
Council, which includes 2 socialist Democrats. Joel Brooks represents the West Side, and Jake Efros, who represents the Heights. Gents, welcome to you both.
Folks, have you ever seen like 3 come mierdas like in one screen there? I mean, I can't imagine being able to fit them all there, but sure enough, they're there.
I called you socialist Democrat.
I mean, they're Democratic socialists, you retard. I mean, again, do you not read? I mean, really, I get it. You're 85, you're almost 90. I get it. Maybe you don't read anymore. Maybe your reading glasses need maybe an upgrade in prescription. David, I mean, again, I don't like Democratic socialists, but at least refer to them by their proper names. If you're going to call yourself a journalist, do your homework, for God's sakes.
I hear a lot of people, I think including yourselves, use the term social democrats. Is this semantics or is there...
No, it's stupidity, but I mean, it's nice to know you like to openly encourage it, but let's continue.
A point.
Yeah, we are both members of Democratic Socialists of America, DSA.
Yep.
And we both consider ourselves Democratic Socialists. And, this means that kind of from the bottom up, we're putting working class people in power in places where traditionally, corporate elites are calling the shots, their preferred politicians are calling the shots. But this means we're building power from the grassroots on up.
Which is a philosophy, I guess, right? As opposed to a system, an economic system, Joel, right? Which is what socialism is. I'm just trying to separate the semantics from what we're talking about, because...
Oh my God. Like, Dave, did you ever read a history book? I mean, I get it. You're like almost 90 and you probably forgot what you learned in high school history when you took it like 75 years ago. Pero Dios mío, like, are you... folks, it's scary in finding that people like this have a microphone. It really is. But let's continue.
We're going to talk a lot about potholes. So I
Sure.
want people to understand where you are coming from.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, when you kind of introduce us as socialist Democrats, we are both registered Democrats. And, I will echo what Mayor Zoran Mamdani said, that, we're registered Democrats, so we can participate in the primaries in New Jersey. And, being a Democrat is something that, I'll speak for myself, I don't think about it every day.
Yes, you do. Folks, you ever check out this retard's social media? Yes, he does.
It's my party affiliation. I go and vote in that party primary. But as a Democratic Socialist, that
as a Democrat, so I'm a special type of retard. But let's continue.
is our, the DSA is our political home. It's where we strategize about organizing and
understanding economics and understanding biology, fixating on identity and other woke bullshit, which is what these two retards live for. And folks, when they take the oath of office coming up on January 1st, you'll see it firsthand. Folks, I can't wait for council meetings. I can't wait to sit in on council meetings and look at these two retards sitting there espousing DSA talking points. And somehow thinking that taxpayers in Jersey City are going to be happy with somehow this utopian idea about free stuff. No, folks, someone has to pay for it. Again, and it shows when two grown men never took an economics course. Well, let's continue.
how to win real material gains for working class people, like Jake said.
I'm just thinking, I mentioned.
Oh God. I mean, Uncle Dave, when he says, I'm just thinking, woof, that's scary. It's probably two more thoughts than he had all day, but let's continue.
This to somebody the other day. This is Jersey City, where Frank Hague is a legendary political figure, and he actually organized the group to drive socialists out of the city and literally into the Hudson River, and how he would be rolling over in his grave at the very idea of that mention. But in a lot of ways, he was kind of a social democrat too, except for the corruption part. But so just so as we can go forward, you acknowledge the need for elections and democratic institutions, et cetera.
100%.
Yeah.
And on the note of the social democracy and democratic socialism, that difference in language, that's up to debate. And I think people would have different ideas on it. The way I see it is that, the difference is capitalism itself a system that is.
Folks, doesn't it scare anybody in Jersey City? And apparently, listen, the electorate, you get what you vote for. But for two guys that never had a real job in their entire lives are now going to be in charge of your taxation policies in Jersey City. Again, folks, I'm going to laugh for the next 4 years. You get what you vote for.
Primarily centered around generating profit. Is that a system that we want to keep as the overarching guiding?
Well, you have to collect taxes, Jake. Like, what do you think? Do you think money just grows on trees? I know you've never had a real job before. I get it. But at some point, you have to find a way to generate revenue. And unfortunately, based on what you and the rest of the council and the mayor-elect are promising or looking to accomplish, it may not be realistic without raising taxes. But we'll see. But again, folks, in Jersey City, you get what you vote for.
Force for our society and economy. And social democrats say yes, but we should tweak as much as possible within that. And for myself as a democratic socialist, I think we can do better, and our system should be designed to generate equality for all people, and to have everyone's basic needs met before we think about generating profit.
All right. As I said before, a pothole is a pothole. That's the bottom line. So let's talk about those things. And
Michele, when you walk, I'm sure you create a lot of them when you walk down in that shithole part of Jersey City where you live in. But let's continue.
How a social democrat's approach might be different. What are the issues that are driving voters? I know you're going to say affordability, because that's what everybody's been saying, but that's what the truth is. But if we can put that aside, I mean, I don't know how you can do that, but in addition to affordability.
Well, in fairness, you don't know a lot of things, David, but I mean that's a debate for another day.
What have voters been telling you are the needs in your wards? And you're in two different wards, we should say, in two different parts of the city.
I mean, yeah, affordability was the number one concern. But in terms of the West Side, what I heard renters and homeowners say that, our costs are going up and we're not seeing an according increase in services or quality in services from the city. And so, you talk about potholes, and there's a lot of, nearly undrivable streets in Jersey City. There's a real need for increased street safety, pedestrians, cyclists, drivers, transit riders.
In addition to like all the rainbow crosswalks, I'm sure you'll want to have repainted too, obviously, which that'll help, when it comes to pedestrian safety and everything else. But let's continue.
And increased tree canopy. As development comes into West Side, we have a lot of infill development with, people need zoning variances, and then they're getting tax breaks, not building union, no affordable units. And I think that kind of all went into a pot of dissatisfaction. And this was a change election. And I think people all over the city, but the West Side as well, voted for change.
Yeah, gentrification, a big issue on the West Side too. The Heights, you've probably seen it accelerate really quickly, Jake, again, beyond the overarching point of affordability.
Obviously, costs are exploding in all of Ward D, which is the Heights, the Slopes, and a small part of downtown that's also represented by D. But in addition to those, it's similar quality of life concerns. Why are we paying so much money to live here when we only see our roads paved in an election year? When we don't see the garbage get picked up in a way that makes our streets cleaner, but actually in a way that often leaves trash riddled all throughout the sidewalks and streets anyway. Why aren't we seeing green space expanded, or a tree canopy that can keep seniors and young kids safe from like the 100-degree summers that we have now? So those are a lot of the basic quality of life concerns that people have, and it's a matter of we deserve more.
Yeah,
ordinary working families deserve more, especially for all that we pay to live here. So let's win it.
I've lived here all my life, and I've never.
I know. I mean, that's something I'd be proud of. I mean, based on where you live, Dave, I get out of that shithole as soon as possible. But hey, again, you want to live where you want to live. That's up to you. But
Never seen an election quite like this one, where the something in the air suggests that this really is a change election beyond the changing of mayors. I mean, this all kind of is an extension of the revolution started when the line started crumbling, no?
Yeah, definitely. There's been so much activism from, whether you're a democratic socialist or a progressive. There's been so much activism from ordinary people who are so tired of really corrupt machine politics done, if not the exact same way, then in a similar way to how Frank Hague was running things in the last century. And from getting rid of the county line, the ballot line, to making sure independents can actually win seats in
Dynamic of the
activism in a lot of different places throughout politics, both electoral and beyond.
Yeah, Joe, what do you think about the dynamic of this city council? It's like, I guess, is it 6 new city council members, something like that, and a lot of new faces. I mean, I remember interviewing you, Joel. I don't know if you remember 4 years ago when you ran on the West Side. It's a
folks, I mean, it's alarming to see like the amount of virtue signalers and woke fools and social justice clowns. I mean, you can just see there in that picture. You see Katie Brennan, what an insufferable. Well, it's a family program. I'll leave it at that. Another useless woman there, Musab Ali. Another useless woman there, obviously, Ravi Bala. Folks, you get what you vote for. You get what you vote for. So I'm counting the days until January. I want to see what these virtue signalers and all these woke fools. Let's see. They wrote a lot of checks. Let's see if their asses can cash it in 2026. But let's and God forbid, of course, Dave would ever ask these two retards a serious question about economics and about why they fixate on pronouns instead of public safety and property taxes. But again, that's asking Uncle Dave to do his job is like asking like his New York Mets to make the playoffs, and we all know that doesn't happen regularly, if at all.
Whole different ball game now on the city council, isn't it?
It is. I think we have two incumbents that won re-election, Denise and Wardang and Frank and Wardaf. So, I mean, Rolando is coming back.
Right?
Yeah. So he's cumulatively has maybe the most seniority.
Well, let me tell you, that's the argument he's going to make when he tells you that he wants to be council president. I just throwing that out.
No comment on that one. No comment on that one. Yeah, let's.
Folks, so again, the reason that, I had to include this clip here is, again, folks, as a reminder. We started off with talking about, the need for public broadcasting, the need for whether or not taxpayers should be paying for public broadcasting. Folks, for years, public broadcasting has been doing you a disservice here in New Jersey. And for years, tens of millions of taxpayer dollars were wasted in funding operations like NJPBS and NJ Spotlight News, with Uncle Dave at the helm, leading the way. Folks, you have no one to blame but yourselves. And I'm hoping that some in Trenton will stand up and be like, yeah, no, we don't need to fund this. Sorry, we need to do this. There are more important things in New Jersey to worry about, like affordability, our property taxes, whether or not we'll keep spending money to coddle illegals, how much money will go to coddle the alphabet mob in Trenton, who knows, and all these advocacy organizations. Folks, these are the real issues that matter. Funding public broadcasting, funding NJPBS, and making sure that we employ propagandists like Uncle Dave. Nah, that's not on my wish list this Christmas season. Hoping Santa makes me happy this offseason and keeps Uncle Dave unemployed. Dave, you stole money for years. Tú robaste dinero por años, producing the left-wing bullshit that you produced for so many years. Collecting a paycheck with NJPBS, with NJTV, and then subsequently NJ Spotlight News. If anyone really symbolizes the chickens came home to roost, it's Uncle Dave. Now, again, God bless you. You're working during the month of December. Yo sé que, tú como un huevón, que tú no haces nada, porque tú eres un vago. You're a lazy ass. I get it. I guess you have to fill the hours of the day somehow. But Dave, let's be honest. You stole money for years. You're not a good journalist. You're a propagandist. Sooner or later, that had to come out. And sooner or later, you had to pay the price for it. And you did. So guess what? Christmas came early for me this year, knowing you're home, and I'm still working. And still getting paid for it. That's a good thing. And you know what? Santa was good to me, and why not? I've been a good journalist. You know who hasn't been? Yeah, Uncle Dave. And those are my final thoughts. Folks, a special comment tonight, and again, being the academic and broadcast journalist that I like to be and be informative to all of you. Happy Bill of Rights Day. Yes, folks. Bill of Rights was, again, established today, December the 15th, in 1791, and it was ratified as the first 10 amendments to the United States Constitution, guaranteeing fundamental freedoms like speech, religion, and a fair trial, as well as reserving powers for the people in the states, serving as a cornerstone of American liberty. And for those of you at home maybe aren't sure about what the Bill of Rights are, well, it's the first 10 amendments to the United States Constitution, ensuring essential civil rights and liberties. It was ratified once again on December the 15th in 1791. Again, key freedoms that are guaranteed. And again, folks, by the way, the Bill of Rights is still there. It's not eroding, despite what left-wing academics like Maribel Hovind most likely believes in, or left-wing journalists like David Cruz, Max Pizarro, you name it, Tommy Boy Tom Moran, Sleepy Al, Alan Steinberg, useless Bob Hennelly, useless women like Jay Lasseter, again, or others in activism and advocacy. Folks, the Bill of Rights isn't going anywhere. Hasn't eroded. It's still as strong as ever. Again, whether it's the First Amendment about the freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, to assemble and the right to petition. Of course, the Second Amendment, one of the more important ones, the right to bear arms. Okay. The Fourth Amendment, protection from unreasonable searches and seizures. Okay. That's what matters, folks. The Bill of Rights continues to be the cornerstone, again, to our republic. And on this National Bill of Rights Day, again, passed in 1791, the Bill of Rights is as alive as it's ever been. And we still enjoy them, despite hysteria by the left wing, or by progressives, or by the social justice clowns and woke fools. And, the typical, smelly cat ladies and obese feminists that do marches here in Hudson County or New Jersey or throughout the country. Folks, democracy is not eroding or dying. Our republic is still as strong as it's ever been, as we'll be celebrating 250 years this upcoming June in 2026. So once again, happy National Bill of Rights Day on this, the 15th of December in 1791. It was ratified to our U.S. Constitution. So once again, happy birthday to our Bill of Rights. And that's our show for this week, folks. Once again, I want to thank NJBIA President and CEO Michele Siekerka for an outstanding conversation, folks, about the business climate in New Jersey and what to expect with the new governor and a new legislature in the upcoming year. And of course, with the new budget season and everything else, you know what? For a lot of us that are panicking or not sure what to expect, she talked us off the ledge, folks, and she definitely brought back a lot of sanity to the conversation. And we're grateful to Michele for the great conversations we have here on Jersey First TV. Folks, again, don't forget to like us on Facebook. Of course, follow us on Instagram and X. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. And of course, folks, don't forget to check us out on Spotify or SoundCloud. Download Jersey First and take it with you, whether you're walking your dog, even in this frigid weather, folks, whether you're still shoveling snow in your driveway or sidewalk, whether you're doing some grocery shopping or last-minute Christmas shopping. I'm pretty sure you have your smartphone or tablet on you. Check out Jersey First TV, folks. You'll never be disappointed. And of course, yours truly leading the way here on Jersey First TV, educating, navigating for the residents here in the great state of New Jersey. Brand new episodes of Real Talk air every Monday night. Check your local listings for start times here every single week. Of course, on Facebook Live via StreamYard, on Instagram and X, on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and all the other social media platforms that you get to enjoy. Folks, we appreciate you supporting Jersey First TV. And always remember, ladies and gentlemen, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always real talk right here with Jersey First TV. I am the generational talent in Garden State Media and your leader in trustworthy journalism. That's right, folks. It's me, the most handsome face that runs the place. It's me, Fernando Uribe. Enjoy the rest of your week, folks. Again, please party responsibly. Enjoy the rest of your week. Special programming, folks, next Monday night, December the 22nd, will be our last show of 2025. Again, the generational talent deserves a little bit of a Christmas break after a great year traffic-wise. You know what? Something to brag about. And thank you, Santa, for that. And thank you to all of you that make the traffic on this show organic, genuine, and authentic. We appreciate you making this once again a part of your Monday night viewing. And again, we just have a little bit of a break here. So next Monday night, December the 22nd, will be our last show for 2025. You can check your local listings and don't forget to mark it on your calendars. Folks, we'll see you next week here. Once again, please party responsibly. Thanks for stopping by. And always remember, stay classy, everyone.